I want to talk to you today about something powerful, something rare. It's about what happens when the applause stops, when the crowd disappears, and when no one else is watching. It's about doing it alone. Now, you might say, Jim, isn't success built on teamwork, on mentorship, on support? And yes, it often is. But let me tell you something I learned early on. The most important battles you'll ever fight will be silent. The most important steps you'll ever take won't come with fanfare. You see, everybody wants to start with a team, but few have the courage to start with themselves. Success begins not when everyone believes in you, but when you believe in you. When you decide that even if nobody shows up, you still will. That's the power of doing it alone. Discipline is born in solitude. It doesn't show up when the lights are on and the cameras are rolling. It doesn't begin in the gym full of people or the office with your boss watching. No, discipline is born in those quiet, often uncomfortable moments when no one is around to see what you're doing. It starts in the early morning when the alarm rings and there's no one nudging you out of bed. It's in the decision to open the book instead of scrolling your phone. It's in the choice to show up for yourself without a single soul clapping for you. See, it's easy to act disciplined when others are watching. When accountability is external, we all find a little extra energy to perform. But real discipline, the kind that shapes you, builds you, and sets you apart, is internal. It's forged in the silence, where the only person you have to answer to is yourself. That's where you learn what you're truly made of. Not when you're surrounded by encouragement, but when there's nothing but your own voice telling you to keep going. And let's be honest, that voice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's barely a whisper, but the more you listen to it, the stronger it gets. Every time you act on it, when you choose the hard thing, the right thing, the growth thing, that voice gets a little more powerful. Until one day, you're no longer relying on outside motivation, because you've built a fire inside that doesn't need fuel from anyone else. Discipline is a decision. Not once, but every day. It's not built in bursts of inspiration. It's carved out slowly through repetition, through habits, through the small, seemingly insignificant choices you make when no one's around to give you credit. That's why solitude is so important. It removes the noise. It forces you to lead yourself. It teaches you that discipline isn't about being pushed, it's about pulling yourself forward, even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when nobody will ever know. In solitude, you meet your excuses. You meet your procrastination. You meet your fears, and more importantly, you meet your strength, because discipline isn't just doing what needs to be done. It's doing it especially when you don't feel like it. It's showing up for the work not because someone told you to, but because you told yourself you would. That's power, that's maturity, that's ownership. Your future doesn't need a crowd, just your commitment. Too often, we wait. We wait for support, for validation, for someone to cheer us on. We tell ourselves we'll begin once the timing is right, once the right people believe in us, once we have enough backing, applause, or encouragement. But the truth is, the crowd doesn't build your future. You do. One decision, one action, one commitment at a time. The crowd may come later, but it's not required to begin. What is required is your commitment. Quiet, steady, unshakable. Commitment is personal. It's not flashy, and it's rarely public in the beginning. It lives in private routines, in promises you make to yourself, in goals no one else understands. It's not about making noise, it's about making progress. Some people wait for momentum to show up like it's something you stumble into. But momentum is a reward for commitment. It shows up after you've put in the work, after you've stayed consistent, after you've proven that you can keep going even when nothing seems to be moving. The future belongs to those who show up when no one's watching. Those who understand that dreams don't need a round of applause to be real. They need discipline, they need time, they need follow through. The crowd will notice when the results show up, but the process, that's yours alone. It's built in those moments when it would be easier to give in, to quit, to take a day off from your dream, but you don't, because you've made a commitment. And here's the thing, commitment isn't exciting. It's not always fun, it's not romantic or dramatic. Commitment is often boring. It's waking up and doing the same things over and over, trusting that those efforts will compound. It's repetition with intention. It's learning to love the process, even when there's no one there to say, "Good job." It's looking into your own future and saying, "I owe that version of me my very best today." Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they lack the patience and consistency that commitment requires. They want the crowd. They want fast results, quick wins, external hype. But hype fades. Commitment endures. Hype depends on others. Commitment depends on you. It's the difference between being driven by external motivation and being powered by an internal mission. Your future is waiting for you, not your friends, not your followers, not your audience. Just you and the commitment you bring to the table every single day. Not just when it's easy, especially when it's hard, especially when it's lonely, especially when you wonder if it's even working. Because the people who build incredible futures aren't the ones who had the most fans. They are the ones who kept showing up when no one else did. Silence is the soil where greatness grows. Not the noise, not the chatter, not the endless opinions of others. Silence, it's in the quiet where you finally get to hear your own thoughts. It's in the stillness that your true vision becomes clear. In a world constantly screaming for attention, the people who learn to sit with silence are the ones who discover what really matters. Because greatness doesn't grow in crowded rooms filled with distractions. It grows in focused moments, away from the spotlight, when it's just you, your work, and your will to stay the course. Silence strips away the external. It removes the filters and the performances. It forces you to face your doubts, your dreams, your decisions. It's where you meet the real version of yourself, not the one shaped by expectations, but the one formed by truth. And that's where the seeds of greatness are planted. Not in pretense, not in comparison, but in honesty. The silence is where you ask, who do I really want to become? And the answer is no longer based on what the world wants to see, but what your soul is here to do. Most people avoid silence because it feels empty, but the emptiness is a gift. It's space. Space to think, space to grow, space to realign. In that space, creativity thrives. Discipline sharpens. Intuition strengthens. There are breakthroughs waiting in the quiet that will never show up in the chaos. But you have to choose it. You have to be willing to sit in the stillness long enough to hear what your life is trying to tell you. And that takes courage. It's easier to stay busy, to keep moving, to surround yourself with voices that drown out your own. But none of that leads to greatness. It leads to burnout, confusion, and regret. Greatness requires roots. And roots grow in the dark, under the surface, unseen. That's where the real work happens. It's not glamorous. No one applauds you for sitting in silence. No one throws a party because you spent time reflecting, adjusting, and building quietly. But it's in those hidden hours that your foundation is formed. And the stronger the foundation, the higher you can rise. Too many people try to grow tall without first growing deep. But depth is earned in silence. There's wisdom in stillness. There's clarity in quiet. When the noise fades, you learn to trust your inner guide. You stop needing permission. You stop chasing validation. You start choosing with purpose. Every great leader, every true visionary, every person who changed the world in a lasting way, they all knew how to retreat into silence. They knew that the loudest transformations often begin in the softest moments. Moments when you step away from the crowd, away from the noise, and listen, not to the world, but to yourself. If you can stand alone, you can stand anywhere. Life will test that truth again and again. It's easy to stand tall when you're surrounded by support, when people agree with your vision, when you've got applause backing every step you take. But what about when no one stands with you? What about when the phone stops ringing, when the encouragement dries up, when the people you thought would be there slowly fade into the background? That's when your strength is revealed. Because the one who can stand alone doesn't crumble when the world goes quiet. They rise, rooted in something far deeper than approval. Standing alone builds a kind of confidence that no crowd can give you. It teaches you self-respect, not just self-esteem. It forces you to develop your own values, your own voice, your own direction. It's where you stop borrowing belief from others and start creating it from within. That's not arrogance, it's ownership. It's deciding that you don't need permission to grow. You don't need a committee to pursue your calling. You don't need a round of applause to move forward. You just need you focused, committed, and grounded. Many people delay their dreams waiting for company, waiting for the perfect partner, the ideal team, the dream scenario. But sometimes the breakthrough only happens when you stop waiting. When you stop expecting someone to walk with you and start walking anyway. That walk may feel lonely, but it's sacred. It's where you become unshakable. Because if you can keep your head up when no one's watching, if you can keep showing up when no one's cheering, you've already won something most never will. Independence of spirit. Standing alone doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean you reject people or help or connection. It means you don't depend on them to validate your worth. It means your foundation isn't built on shifting sand, but on solid ground. It means you can weather the storms of life because you've already survived the silence. You've already stood still while the winds blew, and you didn't fall. You stayed rooted. You stayed focused. You stayed committed. The world will try to shake that. It will question your choices, doubt your direction, challenge your conviction. And in those moments, you'll have a choice: collapse, conform, or continue. The one who has learned to stand alone knows how to continue. They don't need to fit in because they've already found where they belong. And they don't need to be understood because they've taken the time to understand themselves. That clarity gives you peace, and that peace gives you power. There's something deeply powerful about walking your own path, even when it's unfamiliar, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially then, because that path shapes you into someone who doesn't just follow trends. You create them. You don't just respond to the world. You reshape it. And all of that starts the moment you choose to stand without fear, without noise, without backup. Just you and the belief that you were built for this. Be your own biggest believer before the world ever notices. That's where real power begins. Not in recognition, not in praise, but in quiet self-belief. Before the spotlight, before the success, before the results, there is a stage of unseen effort. That's where belief is most crucial. When there's nothing to show yet, when the vision is still forming, when the results don't exist, but the dream is real in your heart. If you can believe in yourself in that phase, you've already tapped into something most people never reach. Most people wait to believe in themselves until they get evidence. They wait for someone else to say, "You're good." They wait for applause, for reassurance, for signs that it's all working. But belief doesn't work that way. Belief is the seed, not the fruit. It comes first, and everything else grows from it. When you're your own biggest believer, you don't wait for proof, you create it. You become the kind of person who takes action before certainty, who moves forward before anyone else understands why. It's a mindset that says, "I don't need a crowd to convince me this matters." It's an attitude that says, even if no one claps, I'll keep going. Because deep down, you know what you're building, you know what it's worth. You've seen the vision so clearly that you don't need someone else to paint it for you. And that internal certainty becomes your compass. It becomes your fuel on the hard days, your anchor when things get shaky, your light when the path gets dark. Believing in yourself isn't just confidence, it's commitment. It's deciding, even on your worst days, that your purpose is still valid, that your work still matters, that your future still belongs to you. It's staying loyal to your dream even when doubt creeps in, even when the progress is slow, even when the results are silent, because belief isn't about hype. It's about consistency. It's about showing up with energy when no one else is watching. It's about backing yourself when no one else does. When you're your own biggest believer, something shifts. You stop chasing validation and start building value. You stop needing others to tell you you're capable and start proving it to yourself. You show up differently, you speak differently, you act with intention. And little by little, the world begins to notice. Not because you were loud, but because you were real. Not because you demanded attention, but because your results couldn't be ignored. Every person who's done something remarkable started by believing in something no one else could see. They had to carry the weight of that vision alone, sometimes for years. They had to hold on to belief when it was all they had. And because they didn't give up on themselves, eventually, the world didn't either. But that journey doesn't begin with recognition. It begins with a decision to believe without applause, without permission, without waiting for someone else to go first. So what does it all mean? It means the journey you're on may feel lonely at times, but that doesn't make it any less valuable. In fact, that solitude might just be the greatest gift life can offer you. Because it's in those moments, when there's no crowd, no cheer, no spotlight, that you find your edge. You discover what you're really made of. You meet the version of you that doesn't wait for motivation but creates it. The version that doesn't depend on external belief, because you've built your own from the inside out. You don't need 100 voices telling you to begin. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need company to commit. You need a decision to trust yourself, to walk the road that's meant for you, even if you have to walk it alone. Especially if you have to walk it alone. Because if you can lead yourself when no one is looking, you can lead in any situation. If you can stay true to your values without an audience, you'll never need to chase approval. And if you can believe in your vision before anyone else does, you'll never be shaken when others question it. That's the power of doing it alone, not because you have to, but because you can. And once you realize that, once you embrace that mindset, you become unstoppable. The world may join you later. They may clap, follow, admire, or even doubt you again. But none of that changes your course, because you didn't start this journey to be seen. You started it to become. So I'll leave you with this. Don't be afraid of the silence. Don't fear the slow days. Don't wait for company to chase your calling. The dream that was placed in you was given to you for a reason. Your job isn't to convince the world, it's to become the proof. Let your work echo louder than any words. Let your consistency speak louder than any applause. And when you finally reach the top of that mountain and you look around, you'll know exactly how you got there. Not by waiting, but by walking. Not with a crowd, but with courage. You did it, and you did it alone.